When I was a kid, I used to love flying on airplanes. It didn't happen all that often, but when it did, it was really a special experience. And other than the smoking and non-smoking sections, which in hindsight was crazy, row 12 could smoke, but row 11 couldn't. The meals that they would give you were legitimate meals. And it didn't matter how far you were traveling. It didn't matter if you were economy or first class. You got decent food. Now, if you're lucky, you get a tiny little bag of pretzels or a snack mix or biscotti cookies during your 4-hour flight. And that little snack mix bag is barely an ounce. It's like 0.75 ounces. There's 3 tiny pretzels and 1 Chex Mix square. But that sustenance is going to get you through the flight. One time, the flight attendant gave me 2 bags, and I thought I'd hit the jackpot. I'm going to eat one on the flight because I don't want to fill up. And then when I get on the ground, I'll eat the other one. So once I landed, I got to my rental car and I broke out that extra bag of snack mix, and somehow it felt smaller. It was a sad little bag being opened by a sad little man. I should have gone for the biscotti cookies.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Podfulness. Let's get started.
The thing that I've really enjoyed about having a podcast is that I've had the opportunity to reconnect with people from my past. You know, I just put out there on my social media that I have a podcast, and friends, if you have a podcast that you love, come on the show and we'll talk about it. And Jen Phillips reached out to me. Jen Shelton, I should say. Jen Phillips. Phillips is her maiden name. And we knew each other in the 90s. And we haven't seen or talked to each other in a long time. And it was a great catch-up session. Even before I pressed record on the podcast, we caught up a little bit. It was fun to see her and hear about her life. And she's got a lot of spirit, a lot of spunk. She loves nostalgia, especially for the 90s. And the podcast that she talks about is perfect for that very feeling that you want to get. If you want to reminisce about 90s music and remember exactly where you were when you heard a certain song, we have a podcast for you. So enough of this chatter. Our guest is ready to begin the interview, so let's get to it. It's been, I don't know, 2.5 decades since I saw you.
For sure. It's got to be like one. Yeah, it's got to be.
And now here we are, you in your closet, me at my home office, talking about podcasts. What a crazy world.
Absolutely.
And you were down in Cincinnati.
Yes.
You've been in Cincinnati how long?
20, what are we at? This will be my 23rd year. This summer I'll be 23 years I've been here.
23 years in Cincinnati.
Yes.
So for people listening that have never been to Cincinnati, what do they need to know?
I love this town. I will say I had the opportunity to move back to Indianapolis, and I chose no. This city, it has a lot of history, and it has I think the city itself has 52 little towns in it, and each town has its own tradition, its own little shops, its own festivals. There's something. I still have not visited every part of the city and done all of the things. There's just so much here. It never gets old, and they're always improving. I love this city a lot. I think it's a hidden gem. And then you've got, the south side of the city, northern Kentucky. And so there's a lot of fun over there too.
Right.
I love it here.
Every time I visit, I'm amazed because you're right. Every neighborhood has its own different feel. Mm-hmm. It's got its own culture. And I love the drive coming in from Kentucky.
Yeah.
You go over the river and you see the whole city in front of you.
Yes. Do you go over that way? No, you shouldn't.
I've been over that. Like if I've come back from Lexington.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Now. So you love the Bengals. Do you love the Reds as much as you love the Bengals?
I would say that I love the Bengals more. I'm more invested, but I do love the Reds. I mean, I didn't grow up with a baseball team, so I'm not as fanatic. I wasn't around for the Big Red Machine. I don't know all of the history of the Reds, but yeah, I do like the Reds. I'm interested. They're a lot of fun, but no, definitely more into the Bengals than the Reds.
Now, here's the question though, because you are not Ohio by birth, but you claim it as your own now. Do you follow the Ohio State University? No.
I really do. It's it's a lot. Their fans are a lot. The Ohio State is a lot. I didn't even grow up in Big Ten, so I rather root for. There's other Big Ten teams I would rather root for. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Plus, Cincinnati has UC that's typically pretty competitive, so it's more fun to follow UC than the overwhelming the Ohio State. Now, I do love their band. They have an incredible marching band, and I
Yeah.
love watching them. But other than that, no, I'm good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you have a history of not marching, but dancing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so tell me a little bit about that. Is that something that started in high school,
Middle school.
middle school? Okay. Part of the
I was
dance club or cheer team, or what was it called?
They had a real dance team. We were the Falconettes.
Uh-huh.
Like yeah,
Such a great name.
we were the Falconettes, and then we were the Pantherettes when I went to high school.
Uh-huh.
And then I was a Cardette when I went to college.
I didn't know that Ball State was called Cardettes.
Yeah, because of the Cardinals. The
Right. Oh,
team is
Cardettes.
the team is no longer there. But yeah, I was a Cardette. And then now I have found dance all over again, which I'm super excited about. And there's a team here. There's actually a couple dance teams. I didn't know this either. There's a couple dance teams here in Cincinnati, and I am part of Dance Flash Fusion, and we do parades. That's kind of and I did a bat mitzvah. We did
Whoa.
a pop up at like a flash mob at a bat mitzvah. We do
Wait, how many
flash
people are on
mob.
this? How many people were on the dance team that came into the bat mitzvah?
For that event, we were under 20. We had a small group for that event, but they loved it. I mean,
What song did
it
you
was
come into?
we did it's by
Please don't say Hava Nagila, like a hip hop version of that.
no, it was like a Black Eyed Peas song. I don't think that it caught that we were a flash mob,
Yeah.
because then everybody joined in and tried to do the routine we were doing. So then everybody was part of
Yeah.
the show. But
All
yeah, it was a
grandmas
lot
off the dance floor, please.
they were in with their sparkly boots to match their sparkly dresses. It was amazing. We had a great time.
So yeah, that's great because listeners, you can't see behind Jen right now, but she has an outfit that she wears hanging in her closet. It's like a German theme, right?
Yeah.
Like a beer fest sort of
Yeah.
outfit. Yeah.
Well, for example, our next big parade will be Red's opening day parade. And we will have about 40 of us that will dance for that parade. And we dress up as League of Their Own. So all of us will be like
Fun.
in the League of Their Own. Yeah, it's really cool.
Excellent. So you do love to perform, which makes
Yeah.
sense because of the career that you chose, because you're kind of performing every day,
I
aren't you?
do.
So
I do
you are
perform every day.
you are in education,
Yes.
right? What do you
25 years.
25 years. So
Yeah.
what do you love most about education? And then also, what has changed the most since you began and where we are now?
What has changed? Everything.
Mhm.
It doesn't even look like the same profession I first got into. But the thing I love the most about teaching is that every single student has a need. I mean, some needs are bigger than others. Some kids, they just need a hi, hello, hug in the morning. Some kids need help with fractions. Some kids need help, getting a coat for the winter.
Mhm.
But every student has a need, and I love being that person that's like smiling face. What do you need? I've got you. I've got your back. I can help you out. And that has not ever changed. I mean, that has been the same. And it's the favorite, best part of my job is to say, I'm here. I got you. What do you need?
Yeah, does it drive you nuts when people say, just teach? You know what? All I need you to do is teach my kids their ABCs and their numbers. And you're wiping noses, you're breaking up fights, you're clothing kids, you're feeding kids. If
Yes,
only
yes,
you could
yes,
just
yes.
teach them, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, but that's fine though. I mean, I make time in my day to make sure that we've got some personal conversations before we even get to the academic stuff. I've learned my lesson.
Yeah.
If you're not meeting the needs first, you're not ever going to get to the just teach my kid part. So,
Right.
yeah.
So we're on the other side of COVID, supposedly.
Yay. Yeah.
What's life like now post-COVID? instead
It's
of
good.
pre-COVID? Is it kind of
I
back to normal?
I mean, it is. I think that if there was any part of education that had cracks in it, those have now opened wide open.
Yeah.
Those have all been exposed. But yes, the daily can be normal. There is some normalcy. There's routine. There's structure. We're back to that. I think that was the hardest part, is that you had students that didn't have structure for 2 years. That's the hardest part. And some of the kids crave structure. A lot of my students may not have structure at home, but when they come to us, they know what they're getting. And so that's back to normal. And I appreciate that.
I imagine there must have been a lot of pressure on second grade teachers.
Mm.
So here, their kindergartners were at home, their first graders were at home, and now they're coming to class and they just don't know how to behave in a setting like that, right? Was it hard
It's
for them?
wild that you say that. So second grade is pretty back on track because they don't know what they missed. Third grade left mid kindergarten year, and that's the group that had the biggest catch up, I guess is the way to say it. So, but you see, so like that would be the academic side hard, but then you have behaviors. So like you've got fifth, sixth grade that the time that they were home was when they would be learning, how to socialize with one another, what's acceptable conversations with each other. They missed a lot of that. And that part's hard because they don't know that they're not interacting correctly. So that's increased some behaviors in the upper grades too.
Yeah.
So, and
What
I work
led?
with all grades. I should say that I used to be in the classroom with middle schoolers for 20 years. I did sixth, seventh, eighth grade, but now I work with kindergarten through fifth. So I get to see all the things in all the grade levels, the
Yeah.
good, the bad, the best parts. So,
Now, most teachers have a favorite teacher that they had in school that inspired
oh yeah.
them and sparked your interest in maybe teaching as a profession. Who was that for you? And what grade was that?
I would say originally in middle school, it was Miss Poteet was her name. She has since passed away. I've looked her up. And then later on, and you probably remember this because we went to the same high school.
Yeah.
We had a set of classes that were called Learning Unlimited
Sure.
classes, and my teachers that were in there were some of my favorite teachers. So, and they really gave me the opportunity to actually be out in the community and work with students. And that was when I got to college, I changed my major and I was like, nope, I want to go
Yeah.
back and be in the classroom. Yeah. So I would say my Learning Unlimited.
And Learning Unlimited in our high school here in Indianapolis
Yeah.
was kind of like a college feel for high school. It gave
Yeah.
you a little bit more freedom, right?
Yeah.
You wrote more papers. It was more communal. It was
Yeah.
kind of college in training or
Yeah.
life training.
It really was.
Yeah.
And I was ready to be independent at that point. So that was the best part about it.
So when you think about teaching, what is your favorite film about teaching? Are we talking Mr. Holland's Opus? Are we talking Lean on
no.
Me? Maybe
No.
Fist Fight? That seems more up your alley.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
That one's right up there. I love that one. I love what's the one with Justin Timberlake and Cameron Diaz. That was a good one.
I can only think of Bad Teacher. She was in Bad Teacher, wasn't she?
I think that's what it's called. Yeah. I think that one was pretty hilarious. But no, like the ones that really oh God, what's the one that's got the Coolio song in it? The writers.
Michelle Pfeiffer starring in.
There was that one. There was the one that
wait, that's gonna have to come to us.
we
Wait,
have to-
I have
I know we
this
have to
thing in
look it
front of
up.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, look it up.
Hold on. I'm gonna go on Google here. Michelle Pfeiffer
Yeah.
teaching movie. Okay. And it
Yeah.
says Dangerous Minds.
Dangerous Minds. I think there's parts of that they really got it wrong.
Uh-huh. You think?
Who's it's gonna drive me crazy. I'm so bad at like in the instant. I'm one of those that will think of the answer an hour later. What's the
That's
other
not
one
even part of our little game. Our little game.
It might be.
Really feel the pressure, Jen. So as a teacher, summers are precious, right? What are you going to do this summer?
Hopefully spend some time at the beach. And usually
right there
I
on
like
the Ohio, the beach on the Ohio River. No,
yeah, it's gorgeous. No,
breathtaking.
Hopefully, Orange Beach in Alabama.
Yeah,
It's really pretty. But no, I like to spend summer going and doing all the things around Cincinnati that I always say I'm going to go do. So we always go and visit the conservatory. We try and see the art museum. But we do small local, new restaurants that have opened up in the past year. We go visit all of those. So
And
I like
so
to spend my summers here.
who is we? You're married and with how many kids?
I have 2 kids and I am married. My husband is not a teacher, so he works through the whole summer. And then my daughter, who is in high school, she's going to be 16 in May.
Oh my
Ah,
gosh.
right. And I have a 12-year-old, and so she'll have her driver's license. So I think this summer will look a lot different. But it used to be the 3 of us, myself, my daughter, and my son, that would go and do all these little excursions all over the city. So
Yeah. And in your life, you also listen to a lot of podcasts. I mean, I know you have got to have headphones in your ears all the time. How do you listen to them? How do you find time for all these podcasts that you listen to?
I have a nice commute to work each day, and that's when I listen to all of my podcasts. So is in my car driving. And that really happened during the pandemic. I was not a podcast person, but we were back to work when a lot of people weren't. So I really just needed to use my car time. And The Daily was one of my
Sure.
favorites, because each day I got like updates on what the rest of the world was doing during COVID. And then I kind of got sucked into podcasts from there. So
Yep.
either I'm usually like podcasts that are nostalgic, are big for me. If it's pop culture, and news, those are usually like my top 3 podcasts that are in my realm that pop up for me.
Yep. Well, we are going to talk about one that is certainly nostalgic for you. And we're going to do so right after this short break.
Podfulness.
This episode of Podfulness is brought to you by the half smile. Not a real smile, but not a frown. Somewhere right in the middle. The kind of smile that says, I'm nice, but not nice. I'm friendly, but I'm keeping my distance. The kind of smile you get when you're in your car and you let someone cross the street. Not a toothy grin of thanks, just a half smile. Like when you're out walking the dog and you see neighbors on their porch, you wave, but you don't lift the corners of your mouth too high, just enough to create that half smile. Pass a stranger in a hotel hallway, half smile. Enter the bank and see the security guard peering from around his magazine, half smile. When you head to the mailbox as the postal carrier drives away, the wave and half smile. Friends get the entire smile. Minor characters in our lives get the half smile. And if you're lucky, a half head nod as well. And now, back to the show. 60 songs that explain the 90s.
Yes.
That is a podcast that you actually recommended to me. I have listened to it, and that's the one we're going to talk about today. It sounds like it's a limited run, right? I mean, after 60 episodes, are they going to be done?
No, we've already gone past 60 episodes.
Oh,
we're already past that.
That's excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's always songs about the 90s. So tell folks who are listening what this show is all about, the vibe.
All right. So 60 songs that describe the 90s. It did start off during COVID time. The host is Rob Harvella, who is a senior music critic for The Ringer. So I don't know if you follow any of The Ringer, but this is a podcast put out by them. And he really takes a deep dive into the songs that he picks. Early episodes were pretty short. The format of each episode is he has a monologue, which I like to say his monologues sometimes then go into a rant. And then at the end of the rant, he goes into a type of appreciation. I think you have to hear his voice and his dry humor. You've listened to some now, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He is a sarcastic one.
Yes.
For sure.
And he sucks you in. Yeah, it is. His wit is incredible. His vocabulary is off the charts. And the connections that he makes between songs and what was going on at that time, I appreciate that he goes back and does the work of interviews with whatever the artist was, he'll be like, in a 1993 interview, the artist once said, so he'll go back and do the research of what these artists have already said about their history or the song or how they came together. He usually does a history of, if it's a band or an artist, how did they get to where they were, like the Bonnie Raitt episode. If you've not,
I've not heard that one yet.
It's so good. And I had no idea. I mean, I knew she was older in her career when she had a top song in the 90s, but to know her history and where she came from, I didn't think that would be one of my favorite episodes, but it definitely is. So
yeah. Well, his delivery reminds me a lot of John Mulaney. So,
okay,
the stand-up comedian, and he's just so dry, but it's so witty. So he kind of reminds me of that. So on the episode that I listened to, he had to put a lot of work into the research. I mean, I don't know how much time he's spending on these episodes, but he's packing a lot into that hour.
Absolutely. There is definitely a lot that he packs in there with his monologue, the research of the guests that he gets.
So he does have guests on the show, because I didn't hear a guest in the episode.
So he'll do monologue, rant, appreciation, and then he will break and he comes back to a guest to then they talk about and break down that artist. So like the last episode that they closed with, he was doing De La Soul, and they had, I guess at the point, De La Soul has not had all of their music out on streaming. But then one of the members recently of De La Soul passed away. And really, they didn't really hit in the 90s. They were right at the cusp, like 80s, late 80s. But he made a point of that, bringing in a guest that knew them and could really speak to who they were. So not all guests are as good, though.
Okay, fair enough.
If you listen to the Dave Matthews Band episode, but even when it's not a good guest, you're sucked in because you want to like scream at the pod and be like, no, that's not how it is. Like the Dave Matthews guest, he had never seen them live. And I'm like, that's kind of part of Dave Matthews. Yeah, like you can't really speak on Dave Matthews if you have never seen them live. So I was kind of like, not the one for that episode.
Because that's where the conversion happens, right? So I know people that are kind of like on the fence if they like Dave Matthews, they see him in concert, and now they're following them around every summer.
Yeah.
You know, they get converted that quickly.
And a lot of his guests that he does have speak are music critics that he works with or has worked with. So that's pretty cool too. So they have a rich history to speak on things that maybe he, believe it or not, with as much as he packs in there, his guests have even more to contribute to what he's speaking on. So that's pretty cool too.
And did you know about Rob Hervella before you found this podcast?
I did not. I stumbled upon this podcast. Like I said, nostalgia podcast. It actually, alumni from our high school has a podcast that I listen to frequently. We Have Notes with Abby Gardner. I'm going to drop that in. But I think because I was listening to that, this one came up as a suggestion. And so I started scrolling. And I think at that point, he probably already had 30 or so episodes when I stumbled across it. And I think I started with Gin Blossoms. And that's the cool part about this podcast is you just find a song that you like, that meant something to you, and it's going to mean even more to you after you hear him speak about it.
And he's still playing the music, right? You still hear the music he's talking about in the podcast, or no?
He does. So while he's in the monologue, he takes liberties with, I think it's 10 seconds of a song they can play and not get charged, whatever. He takes good liberty to do that all the way throughout, whether it's the song he's talking about, whether it's songs that the artist had prior to that or after, or whether it's other artists at the time. Like he did the Whoop There It Is versus Whoop There It Is.
He probably spent like 25 minutes talking about the finer differences between
the finer
two.
detail. Yeah. And so he will play, music from all around that time. Speaking of, what was going on in that genre of music at the time. Because that's the cool part about the 90s music that is hard to find now, is there was so much in so many different genres in the 90s that you could like everything. You could like rap and hip hop, you could like R&B, you could like
Grunge.
alternative grunge, you could like pop music, and it didn't matter. It was because it was all out there. I mean, music was just like a feast during the 90s. And that's what makes this podcast pretty cool too.
Yep. So I listened to the episode because the episodes are labeled by the song, right? So I
Yes,
think I
yes, yes,
listened to
yes.
the Lisa Loeb Stay because,
Oh, yeah.
right, I really like that one. And it took him a while. It took him about
Mm,
25 minutes before he
yes.
actually mentioned Lisa Loeb's name, right? So in the first 5 minutes, I'm thinking, is he going to get to it? First 10, is he going to
Mhm.
get to it? And then I was thinking, I don't care if he gets to it. I'm into what he's talking about. And then he
Yeah,
eventually got to it.
he's
He,
really crafted that. I think in the earlier episodes he gets there a lot sooner, the monologues are shorter, but in the later episodes he embraces that that's who he is. And I mean, it could take him 40 minutes to get to the song that he's going to be speaking about, but the build up, you're like, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It was fascinating. And then he went on this, and then he was talking about Ethan Hawke because Ethan Hawke was
Yes.
instrumental in Lisa Loeb getting a song on the Reality Bites soundtrack. And then he was just like digging into Ethan Hawke.
Yes.
And it felt mean spirited, but in the same way, it wasn't. It was kind of
That's
cool
the
the way he
rant.
did it.
That's the rant.
Yeah, yeah, that's the rant part. And then I have to tell you, Jen, he was talking about all these songs that were written for Winona Ryder. Like people were
Yes.
obsessed with Winona Ryder after that movie.
Yeah.
And then my favorite one was by Matthew Sweet. And I thought, well, he's not going to mention that one. And then he started talking about Winona by Matthew Sweet. And I thought, I love this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Can I tell you my favorite part of the show is that when he's talking about a song, you hear the cassette tape, that sound effect. Like,
Yes.
yeah, going into the cassette
Yeah,
player and
it
playing.
totally feels like he's putting in the cassette tape. There's what was the episode? I think I wrote down. Oh, Pearl Jam. When
Okay.
he specifically, the buildup is B-side songs. And so it's even more effective that he's talking about the first song on the B side of a cassette, how important it was. And then each time he puts that, it sounds, I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, he's got to have that on a track and
Yeah,
put it
of
in
course.
editing, but it's so, yeah, it drives it home. I
It's
love
a
it.
deep dive for sure. So yeah, if you're into 90s nostalgia, especially music, it's perfect for you. So what about you during the 90s, Jen? What is the one song that best defines you during that 10-year
Oh,
period?
I
Or
wish I
who are
had
some of your
that.
favorite artists from the 90s that you would love for him to
Um,
talk about that he hasn't talked about yet?
well, so I do have guesses. He's got 30 more that are coming up, and I would like to see him do live. He's not done live.
Okay.
That would be good. Chris Isaacs, he has not done.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that would be a really good one. Black Crows, he has not done Black Crows. I don't know if you hit U2 because they lasted
Yeah, right. They span so
so
many
long.
decades.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but so I would love to see him hit U2. Soul Asylum, he hasn't hit them, but like
Okay.
most of my favorites, and I think that's why I've stuck with it. Most of my favorites he has hit. Not that I forgot about Depeche Mode, because I could never forget about Depeche
How
Mode,
can
but
you? Right.
that was one of his last episodes as well. And I was like, oh my gosh, incredible.
Yeah.
That he could connect to Depeche Mode in the same way he does some of these other bands too.
So
Is
is that
really
what
good.
keeps you coming back? The fact that you're
Yeah.
kind of always learning something new and then
Yeah,
being
the deep
reminded how
dive.
good some of that music was.
It's the core memories. Like he unlocks so many core memories for you. Like you were saying, like the Matthew Sweet moment. I mean,
Yep.
he goes from what was actually going on at that time to personally what was going on in his life. He talks about, driving around in the car with his friends and what they were listening to in the car and how that takes him back. And so his personal anecdotes of who he was at that time, whether he was at OU and he was on the radio, because I guess OU had their own college radio
And
station.
when you
So
say
he'll talk
OU, are we
about,
talking about Ohio University?
he's from Ohio, he's from Northern Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
He went to Ohio University, and he talks about the what was the last one? There was some riot that happened at OU, and he's like, I'd like to say that it was all me on the radio that night, but it was not. And it's like a famous in history riot that took place at OU. But he's like, I was there during that time, but also I didn't find out about it until I got off work. So it's
Right.
cute that he how he unlocks things for you, because you're like, oh yeah, I totally was doing this at the same time. I think I've calculated that he and I are probably about 3 years apart. So he'll speak about being in high school and I'll be like, oh yeah, I was like, my sophomore year of college, or
Yeah. And that
yeah.
is 60 songs about the 90s.
Yes.
That's
And
it.
I've
Okay.
I've listened to 68 of the 90s. I went back and checked just for today. And he's going to end up doing 120. So he will actually double what he intended on doing. And then he said he's drawing the line. He's done.
And do you
He's
think
gotta
he'll
cut it off.
move? He'll probably move to another project. I can't imagine him doing
Yeah.
60 songs about the 80s or the 2010s or whatever.
He
So-
has said that. He has said that something will be next. He just doesn't know what it is. He wants to finish this and finish it well.
Okay. So you obviously know a lot around 90s music. And I'm guessing, Jen, you know a lot about 90s TV.
Maybe.
But
Okay.
do you know a lot about 90s TV music?
Ooh, I don't know.
Well,
maybe.
We're about to find out in a game I'm calling Sitcom and Get It.
Podfulness.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I will play the opening 2 to 3 seconds of theme music from a 90s sitcom. I knew you would be excited about this. And then you have to tell me what show that song comes from. So
Okay.
5 points for every correct guess. The goal is to get at least 30 points. There's going to be 8 songs. Okay.
Okay.
Anything below 30, you get nothing. Anything above it gets you a brand new speedboat so you can cruise up and down the Ohio. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we got some really good prizes on this show. So here we
I'm
go.
glad that you've upped your game. There used to be no prizes.
Yeah, we went from nothing to speedboats.
I'm so in.
There's been a huge infusion of money into this show. So, all right. So here we go, Jen. First 2 or 3 seconds. What show does this come from? That's it. That's all you get. It's a rare condition.
I do. Da, da, da. Full House.
Full House is incorrect.
Oh,
It was Family Matters
Family Matters.
from 1989 to 1997.
It's a rare condition this day and age to read any good news on the newspaper page. And love and tradition.
Dang.
That was
you're
a
right,
really
yeah.
good guess. Maybe I'll have to give you a
Yeah,
little
it
bit
was.
more. Okay. So here is song number 2.
Dang it was. Okay. I know that I'm wrong. Like I'm accepting it. Okay.
Right, that's okay. Here is song number 2 from this 90s sitcom. What is it?
Hey, baby, I hear the blues are calling.
Frasier.
Frasier is correct.
Hey, baby, I hear the blues are calling. Tossed salads and scrambled eggs. White style.
Excellent job, Jen. That scores you 5 points. Very good job. Okay, here we go. Song number 3. What 90s sitcom does this come from?
Martin.
That's right, Martin.
Martin.
Okay, so that was from 92 to 97.
Love Martin.
Oh, that was a good one. You knew that one right away, Jen. Okay, so here we go. Song number 4. Oh, you got 5 points for that. So let me write that down. 10.
Oh, geez.
All right, moving to song number 4. Let's hope you can hear this one. Here we go.
Wait, hold on. It had Tim Taylor
Uh-huh.
and JTT. He was hot at the time.
JTT. 91 to 1999.
Tim Allen.
Tim Allen. He
What is
talks
the
to his
name of that
neighbor. I think his name is
show?
Wilson.
Yeah, it is Wilson. And he fixes stuff. Fix it. Fitness, not
They
fix
live in
it,
a
you're
home
right.
and they improve things around the home.
I know that's like what it's called.
Yes,
It's
that's
called like home improvement.
Yes.
Home improvement.
Okay. We're going to give you half credit for that. We're going to give you 15 points.
Because I knew all the details.
Oh, we've got 5. We got 4 more to go through here.
This
Here
is
we go.
awful.
Coming in at
I'm doing
number-
horrible.
No, you're doing
Doing
great.
horrible.
Here we go. Number 5.
Here it goes.
Oh, was it? Oh, what's their show that they had? Keenan and Kel.
Keenan and Kel, of course. 96 to 2000.
Everybody out there, go run and tell your homeboys and homegirls it's time for Keenan and Kel.
There was a show they were on before. Oh, All That. They were on All That before that. That's why I was questioning which it was.
No, but
Because
you
they were
got
on a
it.
show with Amanda Bynes. They were like a troupe.
Oh, you know your
Yeah.
Nick trivia for sure. Yeah. All right. Song number 6. You're doing a great job. This one is
No.
just instrumental. Are you ready?
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Here's what I rather say, because I can't think of the name of that one. I know, and I can even think of their name. Yes. I didn't watch that one because I liked The Simpsons better and it was on before
That's
then.
right. It's right.
There, but I can't think of the name of it because it came on and that song would start and I would turn it off when that song started.
The song turned you off? You didn't like
The
it?
song, because what's his name? What's the dad's name? His voice. I couldn't do with his
Hill.
Hank Hill. Was it Over the Hill? Was that what it
No,
was
that's a
called?
great
Something like
attempt,
that?
though. King of the Hill.
King of the Hill. I knew
King
it
of
was
the
something Hill.
From
Hank Hill.
97 to 2000.
I couldn't
Okay.
do it.
We're
Didn't
stuck
it
at
come
12.
on after The Simpsons?
I believe it did. Yes. 8:30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm good.
Nope. Okay. Well, you still have a chance here. You still have 2 more songs to make it over 30. All right.
I don't know.
Here comes number 7. We're going to give this a try. No vocals on this one.
Uh-oh.
Just piano. Here we go.
Oh, Will and Grace.
Will and Grace. Okay, you nailed that one. That was on in the late 90s, but then they reprised that just recently. Okay, and then here's the last one. By the way, you've won the speedboat. Okay, congratulations on that. This last one is really, really challenging. And I'm going to give you a little clue. You had to have HBO in order to know this song.
I did have HBO, so I hope I know it.
Then you're going to nail this. Here we go.
It was another one I didn't watch, but I know it. Dave, what's his name? He was
Dave Letterman.
Not Dave Letterman. That was different.
Fair enough.
I
That
do
was
know
real.
him.
Yeah.
No, what was his name? Shoot, I do know
Gary
that
Shandling
one.
was
Gary
the star.
Shandling. I didn't watch that one.
No, it was called The Larry Sanders Show.
Larry Sanders. Yeah, I would not have got that one
Yeah.
for sure. Not even with the music would I got that one.
Live on tape from Hollywood, The Larry Sanders Show. Tonight.
Again, another one that I didn't watch. Like I didn't.
If there were a podcast about The Larry Sanders Show, I would listen to that podcast.
There's your next gig.
oh
Why
my-
don't you do that on the side?
Yeah, I have the time for that. It's a great suggestion, Jen. You could be the co-host on that one. You can talk about every episode and you've never seen any of them. You can just make stuff up. Well, thanks for coming on the show and making this fun.
Oh my gosh, so much fun. I'm so happy to see you and reconnect with you. I've always had so much fun with you. You're one of my favorite people on the planet. So
Thank you, Jen. I
this
feel
is
the
excellent.
same.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Unbeknownst to you, we were having some technical difficulties during that game segment, but thanks to the wonders of editing, you are none the wiser. Jen was a trooper. She hung in there and she managed to do very well in that game, and also did a great job sharing her thoughts and feelings on 60 songs about the 90s. So now you have another new podcast to check out. If you are a super fan of a particular podcast and you're always wondering, why aren't more people listening to this podcast? Because I love it so much, I enjoy it, it fills me up. Come on the show and share it with people. That's what we're here for. It's all about community and sharing what we love with others. Thank you very much for sharing your time with me. Please connect online at Instagram. That's Podfulness, at Podfulness on Twitter. Also, we're on Facebook and email. You can always reach me here at the show, podfulness@gmail.com. That wraps up another episode. I will see you next time on
Podfulness.